Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm. This is our Wisdom of the Sages podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to our show. We are in day 2 of quarantine. We are having a spiritual quarantine here. It means we quarantined ourselves into our homes where we diving into transcendental literature of ancient India. It acts as an internal GPS. It gives us some good routing in our life where it's as if I'm programmed to take dead ends, take bumpy roads, roads with potholes, cul-de-sacs, continuing on with this analogy, cul-de-sacs, we're just spinning around doing the same thing again and again. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to give light in this dark age. And so we're here with a group of 100 students, as well as our big community on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And it's been Kaustubha and me and Kaustubha have been friends since teenage years. And we were both punk hardcore fans of music. And then we lived in ashram for many years and spent so many times traveling all over the subcontinent of India. And then when we came out of that, we both got into teaching yoga, leading teacher trainings, going to other people's teacher trainings, and teaching philosophy and lifestyle. And here we are years later, still friends, still having a podcast of doing the stuff that we love. And we never thought, who would think back then, Kaustubha, that yoga would be so big. It's actually unbelievable that we've seen a resurrection of people wanting to go inside and take this stuff very, very seriously. It's pretty amazing to step back and watch it. What do you think? Did I mute you in all this? Oh no, Kaustubha. Are you muted? Did I lose Kaustubha? I thought that was such a natural.
You muted me. I'm back.
I muted you.
Yeah, all this about friendship, and then you go and mute me like that.
Sorry about that.
No problem. So, it's interesting that what you're saying about, like when we started getting into it, I mean, like even asana it was a kind of, it was an underground kind of thing.
Yeah.
But do you know what interests me the most, and I think will be relevant for today's show, is that there is a wisdom in the yoga culture. I think asana has caught on. It started in the late 80s, like say New York City. It kind of started, let's say there was like in the late 80s, there was an underground thing that was growing. And then by 2000, there was like a lot of interest in practicing asana around the country. And I think now you go 20 years past that. And I think whether it's just from practicing it and wanting to learn about it more, like appreciating what's there in asana and wanting to go deeper, I think that combined with the state of the world, seeing the state of the world, the state of our relationships, the state of our health, the state of our economies, the state of our, international relationships, the state, in so many ways, the state of our environment, that people are realizing that there is something in the wisdom of this ancient culture, which we actually need to be healthy, to heal, And so, that's, of course, that's playing out right now with the coronavirus. It's playing out with, just look at this year, right? With the fires in the rainforest, with Australia, on fire, with Brazil on fire, with this. Now we get a a virus that's shutting down the whole world, you know, and the effects of it, you know, in terms of our health, in terms of our economies, we've yet to understand. But something's shaking us up.
Something's
And
shaking.
yeah, and if
And
we're
no one has any clue what's going to happen. It leaves us in, and we were saying yesterday how it leaves us in it leaves us in a position of like reality, because reality is that everything can change at every moment.
yeah,
And we get put into this position of illusion where we think that everything is actually static, and it's not. It's actually if you think of it, it's sort of what the Bhagavatam teaches on every page. Everything is not static. Everything is fluid and in flux at every moment. Things can be turned upside down, or you can become incredibly successful. There can be good fortune, good health, good relationships, and then boom, you can go right off the charts. And you know, the thing about bhakti is we prepare ourselves by reading the Bhagavatam about that reality. That actually is reality. We used that analogy yesterday of a sandcastle. It's like, this is your foundation that you're building your castle on. And what's the castle made of? Sand. Imagine if I was a real estate agent and said, I got this incredible 2-bedroom ranch style house right on the beach. You're going to love it. It's made of sand. And the tide's
right on the beach.
It's a beachfront property. This is the material world, though. Everything can break apart in a second. I mean, some of us have been married before, and that marriage seemed so solid. And if you look back at it now, it's as if it's a dream. It's as if it was a dream. But then it was like, this is it. This is him. This is her. This is the family. And everything got broken apart. Some of us were grown up in a family like that, where it appeared solid, and all of a sudden it crumbled. And then we get shocked when it's crumbled. We get shocked when someone we love dies, leaves their body. But the Bhagavatam almost prepares you for that dissolution at any moment. And it encourages us, sort of prods us towards, don't take shelter in the temporary. Take shelter in something more subtle. And just because it's subtle doesn't mean it's not there. You just have to dig a little deeper to reach and embrace it. And that's what we end up doing here. When the world falls apart, we've got something to embrace. And when the world gets strong and apparently stable, that's not our shelter. Right?
Right.
That's
Right.
it. That's why when we have them, that's when these things happen. We're like, yeah, of course it happens. It's the material world. It's always with those who are aspiring in transcendental knowledge, the temporality of even our own body is at the forefront of our mind. It's just sort of like tapping us in our frontal lobe. Like you understand you understand this whole thing's temporary, right? You do understand that. And by keeping that as a meditation, not to get us in anxiety all the time, but to make us realize where we should be taking shelter. It really changes us. And next thing you know, here we are. We're a couple punks from the Lower East Side. And, we're trying to, and now all of us here, we're trying to follow in the footsteps of the sages who have lived this life for millennia before us. We can read like some wisdom literature from around the globe, and it actually resonates with us in a deeper way. So, yeah, I'm grateful. It definitely has served as a GPS in my life. We're experiencing this part of the Bhagavatam right now where same thing. There's a massive reversal going on. There's a person, a 1%, right? The 1% suffer. I got news for you. They may not appear to suffer, but the 1%, here's a queen, and she's had a tragic life. So you think, if you step away from it, don't think that the privileged don't also suffer. Unless you are a transcendentalist, unless you are above the 3 gunas, you suffer. Whenever I hear about this, the 1%, they're controlling everything. In my mind, I think, big deal. Are they free from death? Are they free from disease? Because the fact is, unless they're sattvic, there's pain. And to the degree they're tamasic and rajasic, they suffer tremendously. So, and I'm sure you've probably met people who don't have much, materially speaking, but they're sattvic and they're peaceful and they're calm and they're loving and they're tolerant and their hearts are wide open. So it's really not what we have, but it's really what guna, if you're unfamiliar with these, we could get into them at another time, but which one of these predominating gunas is in our life? And yoga culture is meant to bring us to sattva guna. And eventually what the Bhagavatam pushes us to this shuddha sattva, or this transcendent sattva, where we're not even of the gunas anymore. We're out of this world. And then when we get tested like this, how will we react? And for me, what it really pushes me towards, Raghunath, this is reality. This isn't, this is reality. And if you have some pain and if you have some fear, you got to go deeper into this stuff. See my head bobble there? That means that's my cue, Kaustubha.
That means let's go deeper. So yesterday we read a verse and a commentary, and that was Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 40. And I suggested that we had to speed through this commentary a little bit, but I suggest that we go back, we work our way through this, because I think this is, Prabhupada's commentaries are so valuable in so many ways, but sometimes you get a commentary where it's like every single sentence
is weighty.
It's just like, it's just so.
Let's read it again.
Yeah, let's read it again. And maybe we just give a little background what's going on here. Is that we've come to a point where Kunti, the great, she's the sage. We call this wisdom of the sages, but the sages are in the pages of the Bhagavatam.
These are in the pages.
And today's sage, and the sage that we've been with for quite some time, is Kunti. She's sharing in her prayers to Krishna, her wisdom is coming out, and we're fortunate to be able to receive it. Now that began with her, that Krishna, after helping her family, the Pandavas, through so many difficult times, is about to leave. There's a beautiful painting of this. I'm going to share it on the somewhere on Discord, on the general channel maybe today, but there's a beautiful painting of Kunti coming, approaching Krishna, and Krishna is sitting on the chariot about to leave. And she's expressing her gratitude and her wonder at who is this person. In one sense, you're my nephew, but I realize that you're beyond all of this, that you're not an ordinary human being, that you somehow embody all these paradoxical qualities and ideas, and that you are, that you're God, that you're beyond us all. And then she begins to speak of verses that are imploring him to stay. Don't go, but stay here. Stay with us. And in one sense, she's asking him physically, please stay here, like don't get on your chariot and go. But these can also be understood in terms of wanting that divine presence to always be there and prominent in the mind, in the heart. So we can understand these prayers like that, and then being able to perceive that presence wherever we look, wherever we see. And that's a big topic in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna realizes, I can't be that kind of yogi that sits alone in the forest and goes deep into meditation. What can I do? And Krishna says, you can see me everywhere. You can see me in the sun. You can see me in the moon. You can see me in the water. You can see me everywhere. So she's got that kind of depth. She's got that kind of spiritual realization. And so these past couple verses, she's saying how your presence brings life to everything. Your presence in our family brings life to our family. Your presence in our minds brings life to our minds. Just as the soul within the body gives life to the body, and as soon as the soul leaves the body, is not very nice at all. The body may be very beautiful and very attractive, but as soon as the soul leaves it, it's not so nice anymore. And she's saying that when we have Krishna in our life, then it becomes beautiful. And so,
what a great analogy that is.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
is a very beautiful body. As soon as the soul leaves the body, that same body is ghastly.
Yes. Instantly, right?
Instantly. Krishna leaves your body. No one's hanging out with you. I don't care how well you're dressed.
Yeah. Yeah, this is text 38. We're going back a couple. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit of the soul. Similarly, if you don't look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Now, she's part of the most famous family on earth at that point, right? They're like known as heroes. They're, you know, not only respected but like glorified, and but she doesn't, there's no pride in it, like this is our glory. She's like saying this is your glory. You know, that's that kind of wisdom, you know, that kind of clarity and truth is what protects someone, you know. That anyway, I don't want to get into whole guru thing right now, but you know, like all these so-called gurus that disappoint people in so many ways, you know, it's because they begin to think
gurus,
so-called guru, they bogus gurus, that they take that glory for themselves, and in doing so they drink poison, you know. Whereas like the wise people are saying, that glory is not mine, it goes up the chain to my guru and to his and ultimately to God. And so Kunti, she's got it straight. You know, she's like saying, the glory of my family is your glory. It's not my family, you know, it's not our glory. We're glorious because of you. And then she says, "Oh Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so." So she's got this clarity and this humility. So now this is the verse for today. Let's focus on this verse and let's focus on this commentary, because it's so rich and so timely. She says, all these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because and I get used to saying it this way because my wife comes from a British family, right? Because the herbs and grains, the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits. The rivers are flowing. The hills are full of minerals, and the oceans full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them. Okay. So she's saying that what is a fortunate society? A fortunate society is a society that has natural gifts that are flourishing, right? If you see those natural gifts are flourishing, you know something's going well, things are going right. She didn't say because the Dow Jones is at this or that, because the gross domestic product, I don't even know what these things stand for, the GDP, or, you know, these different things. She didn't give some figure, you know, from a, what do they call those kind of charts, the sheets that you have on the computer, you know, that, anyway, I'm not good with all that stuff, spreadsheet or something like that. Right?
Spreadsheet, man.
Yeah, she said, no, because you can look and see that like all of nature's gifts are abundant. That means that society's on the right track, right? And so now we hear that Srila Prabhupada, he's going to speak on this. And let's just give a little background about who Srila Prabhupada was and what he was trying to do. That, you know, he was a person that grew up in Calcutta. As his family was a Vaishnava family, they're devotees of Krishna. His father was kind of like really into hosting different sadhus, different holy people in the home. And you know, growing up, he kind of, you know, as a teenager, you begin to start to question things yourself, and you're looking at them and saying, yeah, all these sadhus, I'm not so impressed with them. Actually, I can see how they're not so deep. And one day when he was in college, a friend of him says, I want you to come hear this sadhu speak, you know? And he's like, yeah, I've seen these sadhus, you know? But he brought him to this program where Prabhupada met who would become his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Hey Kaustubh, can I just give a little, even more of a tiny backstory, because some people have no idea even what we're talking about.
Okay.
The book that we're reading, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is an ancient book. Over the centuries, there's been different masters who've given commentaries on each verse. The purports, or the bhasyas, they're called. they're commentaries that are done traditionally. No one creates these commentaries off the top of their mind. They are done by studying other masters' previous commentaries. So our guru's guru, he translated this into English, and then he started writing a commentary on it. And that's what we're reading from today. And his name was...
every day, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we read it from every day. We read his commentary on it. His name was Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's... Now, Kaustubha's telling the story about how Prabhupada, who's our grandfather guru, or it's called our Param Guru, our guru's guru, he's speaking about when he was a young man growing up in these British schools in Calcutta, how he met his guru, which would be our great-grandfather guru. And I'm sorry, that's just...
No.
Give some backstory, because some people don't...
Sure. And so when he met his guru, and now he's, I believe, like 22 or something like that, 20 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
The instant that he met him, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, this brilliant scholar and really important spiritual figure, said to him and his friend, "You are both intelligent young men. You should take these bhakti teachings and spread them to the English-speaking world. Spread them to the Western world. Share them with people. People will benefit from it if you can share this with them." So as a very young man, he kind of made that his life's mission, but he wasn't able to actually go to the West until he was 70 years old. And that's when he got on a boat, a cargo ship, and went from Calcutta.
Imagine going on a boat anywhere.
And, someday we should spend more time just telling his history, because I'm skipping over so many important details. But
I wouldn't even want to go on a cargo plane. Okay, we're gonna go to India on a cargo plane.
Like what?
No, I'm not. What, you want me to sit on the wing?
For how long? So he came to the United States, and he had translated what we're reading right now. He had the first canto of the Bhagavatam translated. He had to create books and no money, and he was just kind of starting from scratch, not knowing anyone or anything, no backing whatsoever. But the point that I wanted to share here was his mission wasn't merely to convert people to a religion, but his mission was to turn humanity on to some wisdom that can not only be like life-changing for the individual, but society as a whole needs. And that vision had a lot to do with getting back to nature, that our in this industrial idea is doomed to crash, that it causes misery now and it will lead to misery in the future. That
the Bhagavatam calls it ugra karma.
Yes.
Or horrible works. Just when you go off through the Holland Tunnel, and you go through New Jersey, where there's just industry after industry after industry, which was once beautiful meadowlands.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, it's ugra karma. The Bhagavatam calls it horrible works meant to destroy the world. Right?
Being blunt about it.
Yeah.
And so, and so he recognized that this is society moving in the wrong direction, moving towards self-destruction. And he, so along with the bhakti philosophy, along with the theology, along with the yoga philosophy, he was giving a vision of humanity living in harmony with nature, because that's the only way that we can be happy on this earth in the long run, and two, because from that platform we actually enter into what you were mentioning earlier, the sattva guna, the kind of mental clarity and contentment that's needed for spiritual depth. Right? And so he was not only creating temples where someone could come and practice their spiritual faith, but he was also creating farms that he was trying to show, like, hey, here's a way that society can live. And, the farm that you and I are so connected with, the Govardhan Eco Village, just outside of Mumbai, that was kind of spearheaded by Raghunath Swami. That's a modern day example of Srila Prabhupada's vision manifesting, where it stands as an example of, hey, we don't have to live this crazy life. gifts of nature, and there are ways that we can live in harmony with nature, solve our social problems, and live in harmony, and live a good life, a yogic life, a spiritual life. So he was he printed many books. He encouraged these books to be spread widely, including what we're reading now, with the idea that the most important thing is that society catch on to this idea. What Kunti's saying right here, that it's God's presence in everything that makes it special, and we're trying to block him out. And if we just look around, we see that the gifts that God is giving us are enough for us to be content. So this commentary to me is just one example of many where Srila Prabhupada is just trying to drive this point home very clearly.
By the way, another interesting twist on the way Prabhupada was teaching this, or the whole Vedic culture teaches that, it's not like we have this life and then we check in with God once a week for a couple hours, but that it's going to start to change the entire trajectory of what was life to be. It's going to moment to moment during the course of the entire day, 7 days a week. It's not like I compartmentalize my spiritual life to be on the sidelines of my real life, but that our entire life becomes a spiritual life. And that was sort of the cool thing. I don't want something to relieve the pressure of my nutty activities once a week and confess. I want to actually change my behavior. I want a regular practice in my life. And I want to figure out, as I get older, how do I live that life? How do I live that life with my family, with my children, with a home, with a career? I want a lifestyle change. And that's sort of what, especially in this purport, that Prabhupada's like really nailing. And I think that's why you and me are sort of fond of it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go sentence by sentence. First sentence.
Okay. I got to say the prayers first.
Oh, do we have to do that? Do we have to say the prayers?
The appreciations, we call them. We don't call them prayers. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should first offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya, bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving devotional service to the transcendent Lord, blew that one, to the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will be established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyaranjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So here we are in First Canto, Chapter 8, Text 40.
Okay.
Dive right in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall you?
You, Prabhu.
Right.
I do a lot of talking. Let's hear your beautiful voice. I've heard I've been playing Wisdom of the Sages in the car. Is that cheesy that I listen to my own podcast? but I really like your voice.
Well, now that you got this new mic, it sounds really good.
You sound very, very smooth, and I just I gotta sound more like. I want to be more like you.
Stop it. That's crazy. Okay, here we go. Human prosperity flourishes by natural gifts and not by gigantic industrial enterprises. I mean, just that right there. It's just, let's get our compass straight, right? Mm. Gigantic industry is not the health of a society. It's actually the natural gifts. The gigantic industrial enterprises are products of a godless civilization, and they cause the destruction. Now, this sentence is just so pregnant with meaning, right? The gigantic industrial enterprises are products of a godless civilization, and they cause the destruction of the noble aims of human life. Right? What are the noble aims? That I cultivate some inner awareness of myself, that I cultivate some connection with the divine, that I that together we cultivate a compassionate society that cares for one another. All those kind of good things, you know, that when you begin the gigantic industrial enterprise, that stuff starts to go straight downhill.
Right.
You know, you go from a society where you have lots of people working on a farm, and you end up taking them all off the farm and putting them in a factory, right?
Actually,
Yeah, and that's the beginning of the destruction, you know, of the noble aims of human life. And then when you're living in those cities, and rather than working on a farm, you all go to the city to build the tractor and to refine oil and to do all these different things. And now you got your tractor that's doing the work of all the people that used to be on the farm, and all the people that used to be on the farm are working in the factories and refining oil and doing all these things. And the qualities, now they've left the sattvic atmosphere and they've gone into the rajasic and tamasic atmosphere. And now they're, you know, they're slaving away, and they're, you know, kind of killing their pain with drugs and alcohol. You know, just the whole thing starts to go south from there, you know. The more we go on increasing such troublesome industries to squeeze out the vital energy of the human being, the more there will be unrest and dissatisfaction of people in general. Although a few only can live lavishly by exploitation. Right? You create these bizarre economies where people are just struggling to survive. They're feeling dissatisfaction. They're feeling anxiety. You know, you look at the pharmaceutical, you know, industry, because people are having so much difficulty, you know, with their emotions, with even going to sleep at night, with their nerves, and so on.
and instead of fixing what's actually wrong with society, we just try to dumb down those emotions. Those emotions are natural when we're put in a place where we are not living a natural life. I mean, a lot of us, we go to work, we're never outside.
Yeah.
And truthfully, if any of you work outside, you know, it's just quite joyful to be outside. It's a different pace. If I have to be in the garden, if I have to grow food, it's a different pace. And it affects your mind differently.
Yeah. And working with animals too, you know, like being with animals. You can see in the cities, like people like to get a dog, you know, it's actually good for the mind just to kind of connect with the animal.
Sure.
And but we've created situations where we're removed from the animals. You know, you grow up in nature, touching the earth, watching things grow, being aware of the movements of the sun and the moon and the stars. You know, being by the river. It's all good for the mind. The mind becomes peaceful, it becomes content, and you live relatively simply but happily.
On the message board, on the chat board, Joe Adamo wrote, I worked in the Pentagon for a few months in the basement. No windows in sight. It was miserable. It's true.
Right. So, and then the way those economies work is that like one person is employing thousands and thousands of people, you know?
Yeah.
And so now you create this, lack of balance, you know, economically. It puts extra strain on certain people, and the greed of the few is kind of ruling the whole thing, where it's like, what do I need? I need a decent home. And then, you know, the earth is providing all these grains and vegetables and everything that we need is here. It's like, no, I need this economic security that I buy everything with, but that's being controlled, you know, by the few. The natural,
it's with that is, and it's changed even in my lifetime. Like people didn't have, right? Our parents didn't have credit cards. They had like a charge card for a big purchase, a charge card, and you pay it off at a certain time. But for the most part, we have a credit card culture where we are in debt constantly to banks, and we are sold things we don't need. We are sold things we can't afford. And we're almost like children. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. I'll buy that. And we get stuck in the cycle of paying things back, living above our means. And because of it, it keeps us like in almost a human factory farm where we are the factory farm animals just working to pay off things that sometimes are not even there by the time we pay them off. And so that's also tied in with the pain is, selling, like preying on our very lowest basis desires that will fulfill us. It's another beautiful part of the Bhagavatam. This purport is, these are the things will actually fulfill you.
Mm.
Don't go out, go in and stay connected. To the degree you stay connected, someone was writing me. He wanted to go to India with me. This is before the collapse, whatever you want to call this. But he was saying, I don't know if I can afford to go. I was like, here, check this out. You're going to stop going out to restaurants now, because this person had like a really spiritual paradigm shift. You're going to stop going out to restaurants now. That's going to save you money. You're going to stop going to bars now. That's going to save you money.
Right.
You're going to start. There's so many things. When you start to focus on your spiritual life, you actually save money. You stop buying things out there that you realize are not going to fulfill you. That's going to save you money. We spend so much on things that don't actually fulfill us. As a matter of fact, they sometimes agitate us even more. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, so true. So true. It's like there's a principle. And I think that that's what's coming out in this commentary. And the principle is that nature, you can say God, or if you want, you can say nature, provides for our need. And actually in a very beautiful way, if you just take the time to slow down and appreciate it. The pleasure that you can derive from, whatever may be, a good apple or a vegetable or something like that. It's such a miraculous gift. It's full of flavor. It's full of nutrients. But we hit a point where we say we're not satisfied with this. We want something beyond it. And as soon as you try to go beyond it, as soon as the greed, you're not living according to the need. There's enough for the need, but not for the greed. And as soon as you want to push it, hey, we could live on a farm, or we could create a big industrial factory, and I could make more money than I've ever made before. I could make 5 times, 10 times. I could make 100 times more money. And once we go that direction, then everything starts to screw up. You create, for instance, like that our economy can be shook, like the world global economy can be drastically, that I can have all of this wealth one day and it disappears the next day because of something that's not even like tangible, just because a lot of people lose faith suddenly. And then, and then my wealth, is lost. It's just unnatural. Whereas like if you have a piece of land and you have people that are willing to work that land, it's stable. The formula is that if I'm satisfied simply, we can all live happily. And if we decide that we're not going to be satisfied simply, we're going to start to fight over resources. We're going to create unstable environments, and we're going to suffer because of it. These viruses, coronavirus, SARS, the whole list of them, Ebola, bird flu, what are they all coming from? They're all coming from the meat industry in one way or another, So much of that is tied to the meat. Now, we could live happily off the grains and the vegetables, etc. But we decide, no, we all want to eat this instead. Well, it causes a lot of pain. I still want to do it. Okay, then you go that way. But then you see that the way nature works is that we suffer for it. That as soon as we go beyond what our quota is, we suffer. So in any case, let's continue. The natural law is that the human being may take advantage of these godly gifts by nature and satisfactorily flourish on them without being captivated by the exploitive motive of lording it over material nature. That's the point, right? I mean, that's an eloquent sentence. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of such exploitive attempts.
That's so good.
It's so clear, right? It's just, we just need to slow down and hear this message,
I said some of the most pleasurable times I've had here at Super Soul there's sometimes we would do a retreat, a kirtan retreat, or a treat for a bhakti retreat or something like that. But those are, I find that those weren't even the best. The best ones were when people come without any expectations, and we do these seva retreats where people just come and we do work. I mean, it makes no material sense whatsoever. They're going to a retreat. Sometimes they've even donated money or given money for the retreat.
And then they work all week.
And then they work. Not only do they work, we've had the last few ones we've had, there's been a crazy weather thing where it's cold and pouring rain. And so we're thinking, and some of you guys know you were at these retreats. Silas and Tom Essig and Ava, we're just like, okay, we're going to put up a fence and it's freezing rain. And me, and Jai Balai, we're trying to like direct it. And we're thinking, oh my God, we can't let these guys work outside. It's going to be miserable today. And everyone's like, nope, we're working outside. It's like,
that's great.
Because where is the pain and where is the pleasure? It's just in their desires. And when you have your desire, I'm here to give. Instead of like, okay, I'm on a retreat. I'm on a luxury retreat. You just have lots of expectations. It's those expectations that cause us the greatest amount of pain and managing our expectations. But if I'm here to give and I'm working outside, I tell you, it is so much fun. Last time we had a massive tree fall, a massive tree. It would have taken hundreds of hours to like process this tree and stack. And we did this thing like with 30 people and just the entire tree was done. Like took it, chopped it, burnt it, stacked it. It was incredible. And it was fun.
If you felt good, it was fun. And your relationships develop around that, right? Like healthy relationships.
But Noah and Scylla were like rolling logs. It was like one of the funnest days of last year.
And you know what also is that beautiful photograph after one of those kind of service retreats that you had where you had that huge table out in the middle of the that
was great.
And it's just like how many people eating together at one table?
That one time we had 120. Yeah.
And so people see the photograph on this big open plot of land. The sun is going down. There's 100 and something people all eating at one table. And just the idea of people look at that photograph and they say, that's the world that I want to live in, right? We serve together. We're satisfied with the simple things that nature provides, and we find deep happiness through it. Not by running around through bars or watching, ridiculous movies or, chasing after sense gratification and all the bizarre manifestations that we do it in. I mean, it's crazy, the stupid things that we're doing as a society. But that's it.
You know what? The kids, raising kids in that atmosphere too. My kids like it when the people would come over, they'd enjoy it. It'd be fun for them. And they're part of the fun and gives them like sort of purpose. It's all based in nature anyway.
Kid friendly, animal friendly,
mother approved. I was thinking another thing. Bridget and me, we raised our kids at a Waldorf school here, and the concept of Waldorf school also has the Steiner schools. They really have this thing with bringing the kids right back to these real original types of pleasures. So they have these fairs. What's that fair they have where they're sawing wood, like the Harvest Festival or something? So here's one of the things they do at the fair. You get one of those double hand saws where you're chopping wood. They'll have a sawing wood contest. You know what I mean? And then they have a hay ride where you go around and they get pulled around in the cart. And then they have a hay jump where you jump into stacks of hay. You don't need these gigantic, ridiculous.
What about the maypole, Raghunath?
The maypole is very wonderful. The maypole is beautiful. Oh, then we have another. Then there's this other one, a banana pole, where you have a pole straight up, and you got to climb up, and they time you how fast you get up that pole, and then pick a banana, and they come down the pole, and that's a whole nother. So this is the type of the thing at a fair. It's like a real country fair, and it's actually satisfying. And then there's people playing fiddle, or there's people playing music in acoustically.
You're a country boy, Robo.
It's a different experience than going to then it's interesting because it happens in the autumn time. And then there's the Chatham County Fair, which is like all these like mechanical rides, all these crazy people working the rides. It's like all these like people trying to hawk their goods. It's got a real creepy environment to it.
All right. It can go-
Selling giant fried dough. It's a different mood completely.
Right. Okay.
Anyway,
So
back to nature here.
okay. So
Continue.
I'm going to read that sentence again. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of such exploitive attempts. If we have sufficient grains, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, then what is the necessity of running a slaughterhouse and killing poor animals? A man need not kill an animal if he has sufficient grains and vegetables to eat. Right? But once we decide, no, I want to do that, then you get like global pandemics, you know. The flow of the river waters fertilizes the fields. And there's more than what we need. Minerals are produced in the hills and the jewels in the ocean. You know, it's like when you look at a hill or a mountain, it's just a big storehouse of healthy minerals. And when the rain falls on the hill, it just pulls all those minerals through the water and it spreads throughout the land. It just fertilizes the land with all this. It's just the way nature works is just perfect, you know. Then you eat a vegetable or grain that comes from, that's been nourished by the hills, and it's healthy and delicious, you know. And you know, there's a lot of talk in this commentary about like the jewels, the pearls and so on, but like in Vedic society, they understood how to make medicines out of pearls, and it wasn't just for decoration, you know, but
It's
it was
interesting,
like,
huh? They're
yeah,
medicines out of jewels.
very, very powerful ones. They would use gold for that. They would use pearls for that, different jewels to make very, very potent medicines. You know? So minerals are produced in the hills.
Imagine that, go to the hospital. Is there a jewel doctor here?
Yeah, they grind it up, and minerals are produced in the hills and the jewels in the ocean. If the human civilization has sufficient grains, minerals, jewels, water, milk, etc., then why should it hanker after the terrible industrial enterprises at the cost of the labor of some unfortunate men? But all these natural gifts are dependent on the mercy of the Lord. What we need, therefore, is to be obedient to the laws of the Lord and achieve the perfection of human life by devotional service. Now, when Prabhupada says it that way, our Western ears is like,
Laws of the Lord.
But there's another way you could phrase this, right? To live in harmony with nature's laws, you know, to live in harmony with nature. That's basically what it's saying, you know. Then we can be very happy with these natural gifts. And what do? You know, I had a nice experience yesterday, and here's a plug, right? That Genevieve Harrison is doing kirtan live on Instagram and Facebook every day at 4 for like an hour, from 4 till 5 Eastern Standard Time. And I tuned into it yesterday. And you know, anybody that's feeling like, you know, the stress of the lockdown, you just pump out this sound vibration and it just let it spread throughout your apartment or throughout your home. And it's a great relief. It's very satisfying, you know. She's like got potency, like she's got this shakti, you know, like this purity. And it's like she's got a big hose and she's like spraying it all over the place, you know. It's just like it actually is a beautiful way to get together. And so simple things, right? We've got good, healthy food. It's delicious and it's pleasing to make. It's pleasing to work the fields together and to harvest this or to do these chores together. And then in the evening, we come and we read Mahabharata or Bhagavatam and we have kirtan and we live happily. And that was Srila Prabhupada's vision. That's what he was trying to share with the world, you know. It's not just the spreading of a religion, but it's the sharing of wisdom. And it's this wisdom that even if we try to save, if we could reduce the carbon emissions, if we could clean the rivers, you know, etc. Unless we purify the heart, unless we purify the mind, unless we deal with our greed, with the internal ecology, then these problems are sure to rise again. So Srila Prabhupada's idea and what's the mission of the Bhagavatam is to share this, that we learn to embrace a simple lifestyle and we learn to purify ourselves internally of lust, of greed, of anger, that we develop compassion and clear, lucid minds that can make rational decisions and be satisfied simply. And that is the only answer to war. That is the only answer to ecological destruction. It's the only answer to global pandemics. There's enough for our need, but there's not enough for our greed. And so that's what he's trying to share through all these commentaries.
We can name the class that.
I think that would be a good one. What we need, therefore, is to be obedient to the laws of the Lord and achieve the perfection of human life by devotional service. The indications by Kunti Devi are just to the point. She desires that God's mercy be bestowed upon them so that natural prosperity be maintained by his grace. There you go.
Maybe just read this next verse, and that can be a good lead in for tomorrow. O Lord of the universe, O soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my ties of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis, which are her family members. So she's in a position where, how do we explain this? These are her family members. Sever my ties. Why would a person want to sever their ties, Kaustubha?
I think that's a subject for tomorrow. I think
it's a big subject. How do I be loving, but that tie of affection, that deeply rooted tie of affection, how do I sever it? Why would I want to sever that? You never hear anybody talk like this, but Kunti is like really speaking of a very, very high level right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got nothing to do with being cruel or being callous or being unloving. It's her sort of like reclaiming herself as a spiritual being, and trying to understand the benevolence, the ultimate benevolence of a spiritual path. And does she leave her body at this time? I'm trying to think, when does Kunti die?
Kunti? No.
Kaustubha. Guess what, Kaustubha?
Time.
It's time.
Hey, one more plug. I'm teaching today. Go to the Bhakti Center's homepage. You'll see a class called A Sage of Steady Mind. It's today and tomorrow from 4 to 5:30. By donation, give whatever you like, and it'll be hopefully an interesting class on deepening our wisdom through the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita.
Great. And I'm going to do a Sweet Baby Krishna tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Sweet Baby Krishna for our Patreon members. If you want to support us, we appreciate it. It's patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Thank you. We have such a big, thriving group, and I feel really supported. Thank you so much. I'm very appreciative of all of you guys. And thanks for joining us early. If you're new to the show, welcome. We do this every morning, and we churn this stuff out. We talk about this stuff. We do it for our benefit. And then if you're getting some benefit out of it, that's good too. I'm doing it for my benefit. I'm not completely altruistic here. I need to hear the Bhagavatam on a regular basis. It helps me grow. And this is really the way to understand spiritual philosophy, is to apply spiritual philosophy. If you have any questions, Thursday's question day, write those questions in to Mara, our executive producer, at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Thanks everybody for joining us. And thanks for everybody here at Zoom. I'm going to say some good mornings to all these people. Buck to Andy, who's been jogging this entire time. Sega from Portugal. Mallory, Sophie from Sweden. AJ, Paramananda, Kimber, Buck to Greg, Elizabeth and Daniel. Tom Essig. Nikila, Lauren Carmen, Ed McFarlane. Sarah McLeod, Neil Kunt, Zoe Archer, David Stallings, Dwight Stevenson, Bhakta Louie from Antidote, Stephanie Solelli, Baru, Daniel Ackerblom, Lori from Rhode Island, Jeff Eisenberg, Amy Stellar doing her dance. Pro Bose, good to see you, brother. Saskia from Germany. Ananta from Florida. Jim Rios, Josephine, Nancy Rothman. Kamania from Switzerland. Nikki, I'm like, Nikki, Margarita. Admin is here. That's good to know. Admin is here. Welcome, Admin. Ariel Lim, Isabel Bludeau, Mike Conway. Gentlemen, oh, Dana Marie, Kaustubha's cousin. Joey Eslick, Sarah Oakley, Parickett. Here we go. Robin Schaefer from Lake Placid. Alice from Bologna, dancing with the Bhagavatam in her hands. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Mike Conway. Liam. Roman Ragnar from Prague. Chui Canela. Good morning. I don't know where you're from, Chui, but write it on the board. And welcome. Jiva from Germany. Good morning. Jamuna Jaya. Jackson O. Aditi G. Kesiho. Jimmy. Abir Ashani. Good morning. Kelly Skinner from Vermont. Aaron Weintraub. Dominique. Razabel, also from Prague. We got a big Prague posse here. Scott. Good morning. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo. Wow, there's so many people. Jesse. Good morning, Jesse. Shri Radhe. Jai Shri Radhe. Jesse, thanks for your contribution on Patreon. Appreciate that. Christina, Om Namo Shivaya. Good morning. Papa Tony, Mara's dad. Good morning. Martine, bonjour. Ramesh Chandra. Great name. Mara, good morning. Aravind, Isabel, Eric Noble, Sarka from Prague. What's going on with Prague? What's going on with Prague?
It's a spiritual.
It's a spiritual hub.
Hub, yeah. Nexus.
Yvette, Scott McLaren, and friends. Kishore Priya from Bologna, if I missed you on this, good morning. Forgive me. The names are jumping around as people are jumping on and off this. Jamuna Jaya. Thanks, everybody.